Happy New Year! It's that time of the year where we get together and drink champagne and talk about the best EVs that we've driven this year, though probably not at the same time. Joining me, as always, is esteemed senior editor from the Fortress of Solitude, Mr. Craig Cole.
I'm here. How are you, Chad?
I'm fantastic. I just threw that out there because it kind of looks like you're in a little bit of a cave.
Though some different lighting going on.
Though we've been to the Cole compound, and it's a nice place.
Well,
we should all just start a convent.
A religious cult. We're going to start a religious cult.
We drove a lot of EVs this year. I didn't count the total number of what we drove, but there were a few that were eligible for our EVs of the year. So let's talk about what we drove, what our finalists are, and why we're not announcing the winner right now. So
we got to build tension and suspense. Why.
That's right. That is right. So
we all got to wait because we ain't getting announcing the winner today.
So
simmer down.
So I created a fancy little presentation for us to go through this. If we could get that to pop up there. Whoa, full screen layouts. Look at that. So we drove a total of 16 eligible cars this year, Craig, which is a lot. And
pretty much all the important models, I would say.
Pretty much all.
With a couple exceptions, a couple which I'm sure you'll cover. A couple weren't eligible, but more on that in a minute.
Yeah, we basically we invited since this is our first year of doing this, we invited every new car, or not every new car, but every EV on sale to participate. In future years, it'll be whatever is new. So the list will look a little bit different next year. But basically, I created a ridiculously complex scoring system so that it's not easy to throw any one particular metric one way or another. So basically, when you normalize and do all the points, you end up with 8,100 total available points in categories including performance, comfort, features, quality, value, purpose, personal appeal, charging speed and vehicle range, and then starting price. Basically, we award extra points to any vehicle that has a starting MSRP lower than the average transaction price of any new car, as of like March of this last year. So that number was $47,000. We feel that affordable cars are important, and it's important to show off and prioritize to reward automakers for making cars that are slightly more affordable. Not that $47,000 is cheap, but people are buying expensive cars.
Yes.
And then because we didn't want the winner to be the Rolls-Royce Spectre, one, because neither of us have driven it, but two, we set a capped cost for the starting MSRP to be 150% of the average EV transaction price back in March. So that is $93,000. So we had a couple of cars, the BMW i7, that started way above that price, so that wasn't considered. But most of the cars that we drove this year, one of my
favorites, though.
It was very good, and I love the big old screen there in the background, and it's a very good car, but it also better be for 100 and what was it? I think 110,000.
100 and something. And past 100, it doesn't much matter. It's expensive.
It's expensive. Yes. So as I said earlier, we had 16 total vehicles eligible. These eligible vehicles had to be something we had to test on our own turf. First drives did not count. The highest starting MSRP was the Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV at $79,050. I should also note we did drive the EQE SUV AMG, which was also priced out of this lesson or out of this list. Lowest starting MSRP, the Nissan Leaf at $29,255, and its CHAdeMO port. The longest range EV that we drove this year was the Rivian, which was a late edition at 410 miles. That wasn't even with the Max Pack. So
I don't think they're offering just yet.
Not quite just yet. They're doing dual motor. I think they're doing dual motor Max Pack, but it should be noted that all of the pricing and range information stuff is accurate as of the time of testing. So most automakers don't change that throughout the year, but there are there are some that maybe aren't quite exactly.
That's a curious problem in the EV world too. Finding certain specs is like looking for a needle in a haystack, because some automakers just don't list them. Like sometimes DC fast charging performance they don't have it on any of the spec sheets, consumer or media sites, and it's very frustrating to try and get some pretty basic information about some EVs.
Yeah,
so they're new technology even for OEMs, I think.
Apparently, yes. But yeah, longest range 510 miles, shortest range Kia EV6 GT at a whopping 206. One of the contender vehicles we drove, the 450e RZ from Lexus, will actually go all the way down to 196. But when we quote range, we quote maximum range of the highest trim level, the highest range trim level. And we do consider special, like properly special editions, separate. So EV6 GT does stand separate of the rest of the EV6 line. It's a significantly different car. The same will apply for Ioniq 5N. When we test it in 2024, which is this year as of when you guys are watching this, but not when we're recording it. 7 out of the 16 vehicles qualified for the bonus points for scoring under the $47,000 starting price. So I think we still need more affordable EVs, because I still think 47's a decent
that's more
amount
than
of
I would
money.
have thought. But
that's a lot of that's a lot of cars,
basically.
Yeah. Which is fantastic. And as you mentioned on the intro video last week before all of the contender videos ran, we didn't test the Model 3 because it's new. It would have been also on this list. So and the Bolt is going away. Well, it's gone as of now. But it also would have added for this list. So there are reasonably affordable EVs out there. Who knew? Not the
I don't know. I should have, but apparently didn't.
I still $47,000 is a lot of money. So let's get to the list. I'm sure all of you diligently watched all of those vignettes that we had last week, so you already know this. However, these cars are in reverse order, meaning out of the 16 ranked, we're going to start at number 16 and we're going to work down to the top 3.
So lowest score to highest.
Lowest score to highest. Number 16, the Nissan Leaf at 29,255, 212 miles of range. Updated for 2023, has some new sort of wheel action going on for it, some trim stuff. Zero gravity seats, which I tend to like on longer trips. The rest of the car is pretty basic.
I'm not surprised this is in last place. It's obviously the most affordable model that we tested.
It is.
But it's also old and not competitive in a lot of ways. It's a good car, good enough car, but not competitive. Really,
if you were driving around town most of the time, shorter trips where you didn't have the DC fast charge at all, the Leaf's probably all right for you. Probably a good little city car. The downside is without the active thermal management, road trips become a little bit more of a challenge because you combine that with the CHAdeMO charging connector. And while I'm personally a fan of EmoChad, the truth is it's not a competitive charging standard, at least in the United States. So yep, not surprised the car is last, but also I've driven way worse cars. So don't view its last place performance as an indicator of it being a bad car. Just it needs updated. And rumor has it it's coming back. It's going to go away and come back as maybe a crossover. So we'll see.
Need another one of those
because we need one. That's what people buy, Craig. Speaking of crossovers, number 15, the Mercedes-Benz EQB Echo something Bravo at 53.9 with 245 miles of range. From my experience, less expensive Mercedes start to kind of feel cheap. And I feel like that was sort of, is it wrong to assume that was sort of your takeaway on EQB?
Yeah, I mean, you're buying a $54,000 car. That's certainly not cheap, but it's not out of this galaxy expensive either. I mean, you can push, an F-150 very easily.
Oh, sure.
Past $54,000. So it does at that, it doesn't matter what automaker logo is on the grill or the hatch, you're still paying X amount for the vehicle. And there's only so much you can do with that budget, regardless of the brand. So, pennies have to be pinched, dollars have to be stretched. And yeah, definitely feels a little bit cheaper than some other Mercedes-Benz vehicles, but still very nice for what it is. I seem to recall had a very nice interior, except for, I think, the control stalks. Whenever you would engage the turn signal or something, it would like echo through the steering column. It was really loud, which I don't know that I've ever heard that in any other vehicle.
That's a little strange.
Yeah.
Also running older Mercedes charging hardware
Yeah.
to help keep that price down a little bit. So maximum DC fast charge speed of 100 kilowatts, which isn't the worst on this list. I mean, the Leaf was
double the
on
Leaf,
this list.
right?
Right.
That's held back by Chatamo.
That is.
In the US.
But also probably not pretty competitive. So around the town, maybe hauling some kids back and forth to school, doing the grocery run, stuff like that. Yeah, you're probably all right. There's a road trip car. There's probably a little bit better, even in the Mercedes lineup.
Yeah.
So moving on from there, the ID4, which has a starting price at just under 39, based on some checking that I just did recently. 275 miles of range for the rear drive version.
I think that's the max range you can get.
Yeah,
75.
Slightly better infotainment. Like, I think they're backlighting the climate control buttons at least now.
I don't think they were in the model I tested. Curiously, the radio slider and climate control.
Yeah,
like why?
It's coming. It's coming. Yeah. It's coming. There's the way that Volkswagen has decided to lay out their infotainment system and interior controls is just madness. It's complexity for the sake of being complex, and otherwise, I like driving the ID4. It's quiet.
Great refinement. It has great refinement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like I don't understand the infotainment system though. Like the menu structure is bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't consider it engaging to drive compared to some other cars. But I every time I drive it and I'm not messing with the infotainment or trying to roll down the rear passenger window because you have to hit the rear button and then whatever. As long as you're not doing that, like, I think it's pretty good. But Volkswagen really needs to give their infotainment, I think, a rethink. And they are a bit. I don't know if it's going to ultimately be enough, but that's one of the big reasons why it's 14th on this list and probably not a bit higher.
Yeah, it looks nice. I like the styling, but yeah, definitely could be better.
The Lexus RZ 450e at 59,650 with 220 miles of range. Craig, you've driven it with the yoke. I've driven it with the yoke. The tester we have didn't have the yoke. We both like the yoke. We both like the RZ. Like, it feels like a Lexus. But
it's such a compromise. Range, charging performance. Like, what is the 196 comes to mind as the range for the model we might have tested?
Yeah.
This was back in the summer, so it was a long time ago. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, no, if you go with the bigger wheels, because we had the higher trim model that we tested, it drops the range to 196 miles.
And that's not good.
Not for $60,000. Like, that's no, you probably don't need 200 miles of range most of the time.
I mean, certainly, most of the time, definitely not. But if it gets to be wintertime and now I got to go a 50-mile drive, I got to pick up the kids, and now you start doing mental calculus. Do I really have enough to get there? Probably. Right. But that's math you shouldn't have to do.
But in the winter, there is a radiant heater for your shins. So
yes, your legs will not get cold. The rest of your body, I don't know. All bets are off. But
it could be really good. It really could be really good. But the battery charging hardware just could be a little bit better. It's 150 kilowatts on this one, so it's definitely not as bad as like the original BZ4X that we tested. But it could be a little better. And honestly, the range really kind of needs to be a bit better. I know people are going to come in here and leave a bunch of hate comments because they did when we mentioned that earlier, because there's some Lexus stands out there. And I like how this car looks. I liked how it drove. I liked how it drove with the yoke, even though I still want a fully round steering wheel, because they're doing steer-by-wire.
They did it the right way.
Despite what Jason Camisa says about Cybertruck, Lexus has steer-by-wire before them. But yeah, just they're close, getting there, but just not good enough compared to some of maybe the luxury
Mhm.
EGMP cars, for example, or even
Oh,
some of what
definitely.
the Germans are doing. The EV6
Kia.
GT, Kia. I want to see in a Kia. 63 grand, 62,865. A whopping 206 miles of range because those 2-inch wheels, 21-inch
20
wheels.
somethings. They're big and they're heavy.
They are not aero friendly at all. That wind just
I
gets
want
sucked
I
in
want
there.
a wheel with tire sidewall. I don't care how big the rim is. Make it smaller.
Make it smaller.
It's lighter. It's better ride quality. I'm not going canyon carving, especially in an electric hatchback. So
right.
give me bigger,
Well,
more sidewall.
They want you to canyon carve in the EV6 GT. GT is the standalone, like real high performance model. Yeah. Quicker than a 911 Carrera 4S.
Will it tow a Porsche though while beating a Porsche?
Back to good old Cybertruck land. No, probably not. For me, it's a very competently good car as a performance vehicle. It lacked any fizz at all. No je ne sais quoi, no X factor. However you want to call it. It did not give me the fizz. And I've driven some higher performance EVs that are a little bit fizzy. And the Porsche Taycan is very fizzy. So I believe that it can be done. I believe that some passion could have been engineered into this, even though it's an EV. But
for me, it just didn't. There's no need for this vehicle beyond the all-wheel drive EV6, which is
right,
powerful and sporty.
Yep, this plenty powerful, sporty.
Is worse in some ways for no reason.
Yeah, unless you're going to go to the racetrack all the time, and then I don't think it's as fun on the racetrack as it could be. So
yeah, well, that could be an EV problem across the board, just because of weight, and you typically end up with eco-friendly tires, which aren't as grippy. The list goes on.
Though again, like Taycan is pretty good, and then Hyundai is promising Ioniq 5N to be the fizzy solution to the EV6 GT's lack of fizz. We spent a lot of time in this car, Craig.
Oh, we sure did.
We just sure did. Click a link up in the corner over top this QR code to watch some action where we just spent a lot of time in this car.
21 hours.
21 hours. The exact same car we reviewed. Yeah, the exact same car we reviewed too.
Yeah.
304 miles of range on the long range version. 44 and a half, probably a little bit too much money. Maybe the starting MSRP is okay, but the version we tested was into the 50s, and
and no discount as memory serves. No federal tax credit.
They're built in Japan. Again, comfort, zero gravity seats, great for long driving. ProPilot Assist 2.0 when it works.
When it works, it's great.
Well.
Yeah,
it works. It's great.
And I like the range number. 300 is a good place to be.
It is a good place to be.
A lot of people. Gives you flexibility if something goes wrong.
And praise be, it has a CCS charging port and not something to chat about. So
yes, so you can actually DC fast charge. I think it tops out at 130.
It does. It does.
Not great.
Not the greatest
for a peak figure.
Yeah, but in real world, it wasn't. In real world, it didn't feel too bad.
No.
So not a lot of ARIA complaints, but also not a lot of like. I don't know if it does anything exceptionally well either. Looks good. I like how it looks.
It's a bit bulbous. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's a bit rounded, but yeah, a good vehicle.
And then breaking into the top 10, we have the Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV at $79,000, 279 miles of range, and it's an SUV. So this is the perfect Mercedes, right?
That's what everybody wants, right? An SUV.
What everybody wants. Kind of looks like the sedan, but as an SUV.
Looks like a well-used bar of soap, rounded and smooth.
Yeah, this one looks a little less used maybe than the sedan. Big old grill that you don't need, but looks very Mercedes. The blue color you had for review, I like. I don't know if it pops as much on camera, but
it's a very nice color, very beautiful interior, very nice, well done cabin, comfortable, quiet, smooth. It's everything you expect from a luxury vehicle and a high price. Because I think the S figure was probably in the 90s. So
One thing that I like about the Mercedes EQ software on board is when you put in a DC fast charger,
Mm.
it will tell you how much energy the car can absorb at any given time. So if you're at like a 70% state of charge, it'll say, oh, I can only take 120 kilowatts or whatever. So like it gives you this real-time estimate of peak. So
Mhm.
if you don't hit what you think is peak, you're not sitting there like, all right, what's wrong? What's happening? So
Yeah.
I appreciate that Mercedes is giving you just that little extra information when you have the car plugged in and
Mhm.
charging.
Yeah, they did a nice job.
The Rivian R1T, our first chance to drive it. We know it's been out for a hot minute, but we're, like I said, we're accepting everything this year.
Mhm.
74.8. It's a midsize-ish pickup truck, 410 miles of range. And
Max level. Yeah,
max level.
a lot of clever features.
A lot of clever features.
Yeah, the gear tunnel is brilliant. That runs
the gear-
behind the back seat from either side of the vehicle. You can store golf clubs in there or whatever, gym
Yeah.
bag. You can stand on the doors when they fold down because I think they hold up to, I believe the number is 250 pounds, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So you can stand on there, reach the roof rack or whatever. Very clever. Clever stuff.
Power operated front, so there's storage up front.
Mhm.
We would imagine that if we test the SUV version at some point, it'll probably score a little bit higher just because an SUV probably is a little bit more practical than a pickup truck. But I like the Rivian.
It's very well done. It doesn't feel like it's from a startup company necessarily because things typically work and look
the
good.
Infotainment,
and built well.
the infotainment worked reasonably well for you. I've seen some of our colleagues complain that it can be a little bit glitchy, but there's a frequent amount of over-the-air updates that have really been active in trying to make the system work better and all the features. So
I don't think I had any. I think the infotainment was one of the strongest elements of the vehicle.
Yeah.
It's exceptionally responsive and quite easy to use, but I don't think it's supported, if memory serves, either Apple CarPlay or Android Auto because they don't care. They think they can do a better job. So
yeah, well, that's the GM motto, right?
Yeah.
A charge port's in a really convenient spot too. It's right up
Yes.
front in front of the fender, pops open,
Yes.
which is better than, like, let's say where the Lightning has its charge door, for example, especially as you use Tesla equipped chargers like
Yes.
the Magic Dock ones.
Yes.
Number 8, the Hyundai Ioniq 6. This was probably one of my favorite cars I drove this year, just from a personal perspective.
Really?
I like it a lot. I think it drives nicer than the Ioniq 5. The price pretty solid, $43,656.
Mhm.
But the one that you drove and the one that I drove, 361 miles of range.
That's amazing.
For about-
That's the highly optimized long
Yep.
range rear drive version.
Yeah,
So
the
very impressive figure.
Rear drive, 18-inch wheels, 235 kilowatt DC fast charging. So you still get all of that. What more could you want out of a car?
Yeah. It's more EGMP goodness from Hyundai. You got the EV6,
Really?
the Genesis GV60, Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6, lots of great products.
Looks
They
are a
do
bit polarizing.
very well. Looks are polarizing,
Looks are a bit polarizing,
especially the back end. That's
which
not
I
my
like.
favorite.
I think the rear 3/4 view is the best view of the car, but Craig Cole disagrees.
The front's much better.
Number 7, the Niro EV, also a Korean car, but no EGMP, which means 85 kilowatts of maximum DC fast charging, but at just a hair under 41 grand for 253 miles.
Yeah.
Not bad.
You can make some concessions for a good price like that.
Yep.
And a versatile vehicle with a nice interior, good infotainment. It's not fancy. It's not the latest and greatest, but it's all very good.
Yep.
There's little to complain about.
Very little. Probably priced a little too high just because the Model 3 starts sort of in that 41 to 42 range. But if you don't want that, this is a pretty good alternative. And earlier this year, I drove the prototype of the Hyundai version, which I think is going to be a little bit even better. So good showing for the Niro EV. We don't always love all the really expensive stuff, even though there are some expensive stuff we do like. The Ioniq 5, speaking of more EGMP goodness, 42,785, 303 miles. This is the SUV version of EGMP. even though it's really probably just a really big hatchback.
I just call it a hatchback. It's a hatchback.
It's a big hatchback.
They can call it
wheelbase,
whatever they want. It's a hatchback.
longer wheelbase than the Palisade, so
Yeah.
a very large hatchback. I like it. I like its looks. I like its retro future 80s cyberpunkness. I like the digital.
Excellent vehicle overall. I'm surprised it finished in 6th place and not 3rd or something.
Yeah, well, again, I came up with a ridiculously complicated scoring system so that, like,
You
I
should.
didn't even know until I added it all together what was going to come out on top. As we enter the top 5, it's our first Ford contender, the
Wow.
Mustang Mach-E, doing
I'm
better
surprised this is higher than
the EGMP cars. Yeah. Well, we
Blue
had it for
Cruise
the
might have tipped it over
we
the
had
edge. I
it
don't
for
know.
the upgraded Blue Cruise, which had the lane changing and all that. 312 miles, 44,795. Dealers are discounting it right now.
Yeah.
Really solid car. I think it's a Mustang. I know there's people out there that'll say it's not, but
Yeah. Well,
I
who
dig
cares?
it.
If you don't want it, don't buy it.
Don't buy
But
it.
if
Don't
it's
buy
that big a deal, what they call it, don't get it. Like, I don't
No.
understand what the controversy is. But yeah,
And
very
that-
solid product and older product. It's been out a few years now,
Yeah,
right?
it's been out a few. Yeah.
It's still shockingly competitive right out of the gate. So
Mhm. Speaking of very competitive, the F-150
yes.
Lightning starts
one of
at-
my favorite EVs, honestly, especially in the Pro trim.
which
Yeah.
was what's pictured here.
Mhm.
We had a version that you actually can't buy unless you have a fleet license or a fleet number, which is the Pro extended range battery. But the Pro initially started off at like 40 grand, and now it's well over 50.
Well,
kind of get into it, and then Ford's cutting production, stuff like that.
We'll see.
But
Would they offer more Pro? Would they offer the Pro, like open the availability Pro long range battery to everyone now that they're sort of not selling them that well?
they should, but they really want you to
should.
go to XLT.
Yeah.
They really want you to go to
course.
XLT.
Because money.
Because money!
Yeah.
Money,
But honestly,
money.
I love the vinyl seats. I love the vinyl floor. It's
And it drives really
purposeful.
well.
Yeah, and it's still super nice to drive. It does everything you need and very little that you don't.
Yep.
Because people just use full-size trucks like family cars.
Yep.
And
decent DC fast charging. We tow tested one, was perfectly happy with the range while towing. Sure, it could be better, but we didn't lose as much as maybe some alarmists on the internet will tell you.
Cut the estimate in half, and you'll have a rough idea.
Yeah,
of fair weather towing.
But I see a lot of them around. They are selling them. Excellent truck. I mean, a legit excellent truck. Not surprised to see it this high up the list. Both you and I
would have thought top 3, honestly.
Both you and I like this truck a lot, and maybe the most affordable of the top, let's say 5, because we are going to now reveal our top 3 finalists. I chose the order for the top 3 finalists as determined by random.org. So that should be the truest of true random number generators. Do you know it's actually nearly impossible for a computer to generate a random number?
I would imagine the math is very
because it has to use an algorithm. Cloudflare, the company Cloudflare that handles all of like internet traffic and stuff like that, actually, and their San Francisco office has a wall of like 50 lava lamps, and it has a camera, and you're allowed to go in there and for free and look at it because all of the movement of the lava lamps plus the movement of the people in front of it all help create the closest you can get to a truly random number. So really difficult for an algorithm to be completely random. Who knew?
I don't know enough math to know.
Our first of the top 3, the Audi Q8 e-tron at $76,000. Craig, explain yourself.
It's exceptional. The standout feature of this vehicle is they made a number of improvements.
They did. This is updated for
bigger battery pack, faster charging, more range, etc. But the biggest thing here, I think, is the refinement. It is scarily quiet at speeds. The ride is very good. It drives well. It's comfortable. They did a very nice job with this vehicle.
it's and their infotainment has been good for a while.
Hmm.
Virtual cockpit maybe is getting a little bit old, but it's reliable.
Yeah.
And e-tron, Q8 e-tron, which was just Audi e-tron before this update,
Hmm.
not super competitive, low charging speed, not great range, like
Yeah.
probably very overpriced for what you got in terms of an EV. However, Volkswagen made some changes. Audi, I should say, technically made some changes.
Eh.
And Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche made some changes, and it's now a very good SUV. So
Yeah, and I believe, yes, the range does top out at 300 miles, but you've got to get, if memory serves, the Sportback model with
yeah,
certain wheels, and I think
yeah,
there's like an ultra range package you've got to get, but it will
right.
should do that 300
But it'll do it.
estimated. Yeah.
You're probably more likely going to be in the 250 to 270 range, but that's pretty much where a lot of this, especially these
Hmm.
luxury SUVs, kind of fall. So,
Yeah.
the second of our three finalists, the Genesis electrified GV70 at
Very good product.
67,550.
Very good.
Range is the biggest. Range is literally the only complaint I think I have about this vehicle.
Yeah.
They need some smaller wheels. They launched with the large wheels. The large wheels limit you to 236 miles of range. I'm hoping for maybe a more volume focused wheel at some point that puts that over 250.
I want 280s to 300, but
well, I mean, sure, but
it's
236
just the vanity of wheel obsession. Everything has to be bigger, bigger, bigger. And I don't understand it because there are a lot of reasons not to go bigger when it comes to wheels.
Yep.
Many reasons.
Very good luxury SUV, very
Yes.
quiet. Driver assist functionality is very good. Interior is well put together. The exterior is well put together.
Yeah.
I
Almost nothing to complain about.
The range.
Just the range. 236 ain't good.
236 is not good, but not the worst of what we have on this list either. So
No.
There you go. And then finally, the last of the top three is the Mercedes-Benz EQE sedan. $76,050, 305 miles of range. I would say, Craig, explain yourself again, but we won't. That's a lot of money for an E-Class. But it's not actually an E-Class, but it is an E-Class. And it's just really good. Like
it's very good. Yes.
I think the proportions on the EQE is better than on the longer EQS. I think the EQS looks a little ugly. And I think the EQS SUV is a bit not quite as good as it should be for the price. But then a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, a little bit more, I don't know, maybe performance focused without, really stretching beyond that. It's a cool car. Good car.
It's
a sedan
refined,
too.
Very comfortable. It's a sedan.
Yeah.
Crosses the 300-mile threshold for range when properly equipped.
Equipped.
It's got available four-wheel steering, so that thing will whip around in parking lots like a bicycle practically.
Yeah.
It's
easy
remarkable.
to drive, easy to maneuver. Level 2 driving assist is pretty good. Charging speed's pretty good. Yeah. You can't open the front hood, but whatever. You have to put the windshield washer fluid in on the side, which is a little weird. But
a more complicated solution than just letting you open the hood, which you have to do anyway if you need service. They just, I think, put a little plastic block off on the handle where you would normally open it.
Yeah, like, do not open this. Only a trained technician can do this.
Like a Mercedes-Benz customer is going to be rooting around under the hood of their S-Class or whatever.
No.
But anyway, you can't open the hood. You're not supposed to.
The EQE sedan is a very good like example of why an electric powertrain is more luxurious than a gas powertrain. And that's it. That's all 16 cars. So now you, the viewer, should go vote. Why do you got to go vote? We have a fan vote element to this. I can tell you the fan vote may make or break who wins looking at point scoring. So go pick your favorite car. Go pick your most proud, like whatever one you would have, whichever one you like the best of those top three. It's available voting right now, literally as you watch this. It'll only be available for a week. We will announce the winner of the EV of the year during a live stream that we are going to have on January 15th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, which is when we'll put out a press release and have a story and everything go live. In order to vote, you can do it a couple of different ways. One, you could scan this on-screen QR code that has been up here for the whole episode. So if you jumped ahead, good for you. You can go to the website https://go.evpulse.com/24vote, or you can click the on-screen link right now.
Vote early, vote often.
That's the Chicago way.